All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome, everybody. We've got people dialed in from Europe. We've got people dialed in from Americas. Maybe some late night people who are staying up in Asia. Very much want to welcome you to our Hangouts on Air on shopping feeds. With us are a couple of Google colleagues who all work on Google Shopping as a product, and we want to use the next hour to share with you some of the insights that we've learned in getting your basic feed set up, working through disapprovals, and then also about how to maintain your feed. So this is what we are going to cover: feed basics, feed disapprovals, and feed maintenance. We will have that as our first installment in the session. There will be another session later on Thursday of next week that covers specifically the topic of global trade item numbers, or GTINs. And then in mid-May we will have another installment in the series where we talk about how to optimize your feed for maximum performance. But today we want to cover the basics, how to work with disapprovals, and how to work on feed maintenance. At the very end of the Hangout, we will do a Q&A session. There will be a questions box to the right of your video screen. So if there's anything that you want to know from us, please enter your question into that box, and then we'll address those questions as time permits towards the end of this Hangout. All right, let's get started on feed basics. So in this session, we want to cover what product feeds are, what they're made of, which different feed types we use for Google Shopping, which feed types are actually useful for which of your business objectives, which attributes go into a shopping feed, and at what time you should ideally update your feeds. So at the most basic level, product feeds are structured pieces of data. Think of it like a spreadsheet that houses all of your product information, and that's all the information that you submit to Google so that you can run product listing ads on google.com, google.de, Google Co UK, and on Google Shopping, sort of the separate page that users can go to as well to look at prices, to inform, to product research. And the higher the quality of your feed, the better your shopping campaigns can generally perform. The more data and the richer your product titles are, your descriptions are, the more information we can pick up and then trigger shopping ads that you're running. And inside of product feeds, you have what we call feed attributes and attribute values. So the easiest way to think of it is the feed attributes are all the different columns. So there is an attribute for your product ID, there's an attribute for your title, there's one for your description, there's an attribute for your image. And then the values are, if you are in the analogy of a spreadsheet, are then the individual rows where for article number 1 and article number 2, article number 3, you submit all your product data. That comes in a form that can have the form that you see on the screen. This is sort of from our Google store. So you see in the first column, there's a product ID, then you have a title, you have a description, there's a product category, there are various links for where to find the item on your website, and then there is a link to a product image. What you'll see here is all of the columns and all of the rows, or most of the rows, are actually filled in. That's ultimately what we're aiming for. When you give us sort of the product data, everything that you know about your products, because that makes it very easy for us to filter data, to easily display it to users, to find out what's the image that we should use. Is it a new product? Is it a used product? Is it in stock? Is it pre-order? How expensive is it? And all the other angles to pivot on. Now, what are they being used for? Ultimately, it all starts with your product catalog. So somewhere in your your inventory, in your warehouse, you'll have data about your products, and then you get in the process of creating a feed out of it. So most likely you'll have some structured data at some point in your business, and you're then transforming that to the needs of how it needs to be represented to work with Google Shopping. That data then gets uploaded into Google Merchant Center. That is the sort of platform that houses all the product data that goes into Google Shopping. And then that is connected with our advertising system, with AdWords, and builds the basics of your Google Shopping campaigns. And then ultimately, starting with your product catalog, all that data is tied together into a product listing ad, where in the example of this, you have the bike where it shows the image, the title, the price in euros. It can be in dollars, it can be in yen, it can be in British pounds, wherever your business is located. And then obviously it will show your business's brand. So which feed types does Google Shopping use? There are actually two types. So the first one, the one on the left, is what we talked about. That's the core product feed. That's essentially the holistic set of information that you submit about your product inventory. That has everything from the product ID, the title, the images, the price, and the availability. However, what we've heard from a lot of you as our customers is that every once in a while, when your price and availability changes, you don't want to update the entire product feed. You only want to update that subset of product that actually had a price change or an availability change. And so that's something that we launched last year. It's called an online product inventory update feed, where you say, of my 100,000 products, I only changed the prices on 500 of them. Here are the 500 products that had a price or an availability change. You're only submitting those to us, and they're usually processed much faster. And sort of when a user does a search, let's say they search for a toaster or they search for that bike that we just showed you, that price is actually immediately reflected thereafter. Then how does my feed data get to Google? Depending on the size of your business, if you're a smaller business, you will take your product data and you may just use a Google spreadsheet. So think of it like an Excel sheet or a LibreOffice sheet. In this case, it's a Google spreadsheet. That usually works for up to 100,000 products. It's the easiest way because you have a very easy to work with interface. The alternative, and that is what some of our larger customers use, are text files or XML files, where let's say you're listing between 100,000 products and 500,000 products, maybe up to 1 million products. You export that from your e-commerce software, and it's just one giant file that houses all of your product information. And then if you're a very large business and you would like to deal with us in a programmatic way, where you do not create any files, but where you push your product information to us programmatically, we have an API for that. It's called the Shopping Content API. And that allows you to directly push your data whenever something updates. Let's say you have a title update and you want it to go through a minute later. You essentially just make, for a single product, you just use the Content API to push that change out. Here is a bit verbose, but so here's the overview table. So in the first column on the left, you have the product data feed. The key thing to call out is like you usually push the data to us, or once it's uploaded, you can also have us pull the data at a given point in time. Let's say you update your feed at 4 o'clock every morning. That gets automatically updated by your e-commerce system. Then we can also pull it in. The online product inventory feed is then used whenever, as we said before, whenever you have a price change or an availability change on a subset of your products. And the Shopping Content API, again, is like you push data to us at whatever time you want, whenever you make a change to your product data. So it's always in sync. And so whatever you have on your website is more or less immediately reflected on Google Shopping as somebody searches for that bike or searching for that toaster. Generally, we recommend everybody use the product data feeds in whichever form you're giving the data to us. And then as you have frequent price changes, the online product inventory update feeds come in handy, as you don't sort of have to upload 100,000 products or however large your entire product inventory is. And then depending on your technical sophistication or whether you want to invest all the IT work to implement the shopping content API, that may be the best choice if you're a really large advertiser with millions of products that you need to get live in an instant. Then where do you actually find out what goes into making a good shopping feed, or even just like the basic elements of a feed? So we have our Merchant Center Help Center, and that houses a document that's called the Products Feed Specification. That's a document that is updated once per year. The next update will come in the next 1 or 2 months, so probably like late April, early May. And in that is essentially written the core foundation of you need to have an ID, you need to have a product title, you need to have a description, and that is what we use to build out your product information as we show your ad. So some of the core required ones are the ID, the title, again, the image, the condition. And then there are, depending on the products you sell, so let's say you sell jeans or you sell t-shirts, in that case, we ask that you also supply color and age group and the gender, so that as somebody searches for women's jeans or men's yellow t-shirts, we can actually show your best product to the Google user who's doing a search on that product. Again, remember, they get updated once a year. We send out an email once per year. We normally do a blog post on that. If you work with agency partners, we inform your agency partners of these changes as well. And then normally there is a 3 to 6 month time window to start implementing the changes. We've deliberately decided to only make changes once per year. That's feedback that we heard from you over the last years as well. You'd rather have one set of changes coming out per year, and so that is what we have been listening to. So why do we actually require so many feed attributes? So you may say this entire presentation is overly technical, so we're focusing this on sort of how to get all the data pieces ready so that your ads can actually show on Google Shopping. So I want to show you 2 examples of where all of that product data actually ends up. So the one on the left is an ad format that we've been rolling out in the US last year, where it's essentially a single product, has almost like a knowledge panel. If you search for William Shakespeare, you get a knowledge panel like that. If you search for a product, you get a knowledge panel that has additional information. That additional information, such as the weight, etc., that comes from your shopping feed. And then if you are on the right-hand side of the screen, that is where in most countries you have like google.com/shopping, google.de/shopping, google.co.uk/shopping. That is where Google users go to as they want to filter down products on a bit more detail. And again, the category, whether it's electronics, whether it's an audio or photo and optics or TV and video, that is information that you provide to us in the Google product category. The price is something that you provide to us. The brand is something that you provide to us. And that helps the users find exactly the product that they're looking for. And so with the more detailed information you provide, the higher the likelihood is that the user actually ends up clicking on the right product that you want them to sell, which means you'll have a higher likelihood of converting the user into a customer. And the click that you pay for is actually worth sort of your money, and the user finds whatever they were looking for. Now we're coming to a very interesting topic. That is something that we started bringing into the product requirements as of last year, and that is called GTINs, or Global Trade Item Numbers. So think of it like the barcode that is on every box. So if you go to the supermarket, every milk carton has a box, has a barcode. If you buy a new pair of shoes, all the boxes of shoes have a barcode. That's how globally every single product is represented, and that makes it very easy to find which products belong together. And as we go back sort of to what I showed you before, if you have that example of the knowledge panel, if we know that all the same Nike shoes are exactly the same shoe, then we can group them together, and you can compete on price, on shipping, on all the dimensions that you can compete on to distinguish your business from other businesses. So initially, we had said we made up a list sort of the top 50 brands where GTINs are available for, and we'll be changing those rules in mid-May, where we say any product that is a new product and that is available in your store needs to have these GTINs in, because we've heard lots of questions like how do you get them, what do I do in certain cases. That's why we'll be offering a dedicated training, much like this one, next Thursday, same time, 8:30 Pacific time, I think 4:30 European Central Time, to answer and address all the questions you may have about these global trade item numbers. Then, the next topic is one about prices. How should you set your prices? In most cases, you'll set prices, you have a fixed price for your product. So let's say you're selling robot vacuum cleaners, as in the example at the top. One product may have the price of $123, the other one is $99. There are certain product categories, however, where you may sell 250 items, let's say, of business cards, or 100 items. And then if you compare the prices across, like one person selling 100 business cards, the other one selling 50 business cards, it's hard to actually get to what's a single card cost, or what do 10 cards actually cost on average. That is why we introduced the concept of unit pricing last year. So that is, again, something where we heard you as our customer saying, we need that concept. We need to be able to price not only sort of what the total item costs when I'm at the checkout, but also what's the average price for a single unit. In the US, you can do that by weight, by volume, or also per unit. In the European Union and Switzerland, currently only by weight and volume and some of the more quantity-based measures. But stay tuned for an update there in the near future as well. So those are the two options that you have to price. It's being done in the price attribute in your feed, or in the unit pricing measure element in your feed, or the unit pricing base measure. So essentially the difference there is you can say, okay, I am using a kilogram, and you should be counting my price per every 5 kilograms or per every 1 kilogram. When should you update your feed? So we recommend updating your feed data at least once per day. Ideally, you schedule that. Also for your business, like whenever you have low traffic on your website, that's probably a good idea, so that all the servers can do their work while there's no customer actually looking around. So in case your web server gets slowed down for a minute, some customers do it at 2 in the morning, at 3 in the morning, at 4 in the morning. Every 30 days, you will need to refresh your data, just so that we know that you're still selling the product, that it's not out of stock yet, if you don't use any of the other mechanisms to update price and availability on your site. But again, like ideally, you update it once per day. That also helps your business, because if you've sold out of stock for a given item, there's little use in really paying for the click on Google Shopping, because your customer would come to a page where it's then out of stock, and it's a lose-lose situation for the user and for you as the business. That's why it's good practice to update pretty much on a daily basis. So we've put together the checklist. So it's essentially what you want to make sure in the feed basics section. So you want to provide data for all the required attributes including the global trade item numbers and the brands, because otherwise your products can't go live. So it's like even if there's one sort of required attribute missing, it's like the product is sitting on your shelf, but it's missing the price, for example. If somebody wants to go to the checkout and it doesn't have a price, that's sort of hard to say. So unless it has all the required attributes, the product will not go live. Then in most of the countries now, we also ask that you configure your shipping options so that you say it's either free shipping, or in Germany, for example, it's €6.90 to ship throughout Germany. It depends on a country by country basis. You can do that at the merchant center account level, or you can do that at the item level. So let's say you have a heavy, you're selling a forklift and you're selling a Tupperware box. For some reason you may be selling that in your business, then most likely the forklift will have a different shipping price than the Tupperware box. And then depending on sort of the category that you sell products in, so again, let's use the example of jeans and t-shirts, you may need to provide color and gender and age group and the Google product category as well. If you use a mobile website, and if your mobile website has a different URL than your regular website, there is a field in the feed to give us the mobile URL of your websites. That's just a best practice, just so that we can direct the traffic to whatever landing page is the best one for your business. And then sort of as another best practice is update your feeds on a daily basis. That now concludes the feeds basic section. Now we'll go over into the feeds disapproval section. There are some links that we got here. We'll post them in the video description. We'll record the video and then post all these links in the video description afterwards, but just wanted you to have all the links, like what are the different file formats, where do you find the product feeds specification, etc. All right, now onto the disapprovals. So let's say you uploaded all the product data, but there are one or two things missing. So what happens there? That's what we want to cover in this session. So it's like, why are feeds and items disapproved? Where do you actually find out what's wrong? It's like, how can you fix it? And then how can you self-service it if a product that you uploaded has an issue to be troubleshooted? So the basic concept is whatever product data you upload is also reflected to Google's users, and it's sort of what they take for granted about your product. So if there's a gap in your data or an error in your data or some inadvertent misrepresentation, we'd rather not have that product show rather than confusing users or accidentally sending traffic to your website in the case your website is down or the website is under construction. So those are some of the more common reasons why feeds and items that get disapproved. So the most common reason that we actually see is there's a minor change in price, and you changed the price on the website, but unfortunately forgot to update it in the shopping feed. Or you're updating your website, and for maybe an hour or two, your website is under construction, and it's just during that time where a Google user is arriving. So that may lead to a temporary disapproval as well. In some cases, we see that placeholder images are being used. So where it's just like, I'll upload the image later, or there is no good product image and you just put up a gray box. Remember, that gray box would also show up on google.com or google.de or Google Co UK. And that is something that is very much confusing to users. Imagine your competitors did that as well, and then a user is searching for a bike or toaster, and you just have 5 different gray boxes. That's a very bad user experience and doesn't really tell the user, hey, is this really the bike or the toaster that I'm looking for? Not having a clear return or refund policy is also something that we've seen in some cases. So again, put yourself in the shoes of the customer. If they cannot easily find out how to give a product back to you in case, especially in the case of fashion, where they need to send the jeans or the t-shirt back. And then clearly, a big no-no is not having a secure checkout on your merchant side. So generally, when we look at why feeds and items get disapproved, there are two major categories. So we went through some of the examples before, but just conceptually, there's stuff that can go wrong about your data quality. That is the price, availability, the images. That's essentially everything that you upload in your feed. And then there are policy disapprovals where the products that you submitted actually should not have been uploaded, or there's something with your website that, as our colleagues who look at your website actually sort of vet, is this a business that is trustworthy, or is that a business that is fulfilling all the requirements to participate in Google Shopping, that is fitting all that. And let's pick out endangered species. So let's say you're selling a Siberian tiger. Obviously, that's not something that we want on Google Shopping. And that would be as is counterfeit goods. Let's say you're selling counterfeit Gucci handbags. That's also something that we want nothing to do with, and we'd rather disapprove those products and not have them show and forego that business rather than showing them on Google Shopping. Now, where do you actually find out if there's something wrong, if there's something wrong at all? So if you log into the Google Merchant Center, there is something called the Diagnostics tab. The Diagnostics tab has been around for about a year and a half, again, based on a lot of customer feedback that said, this is still too complicated. I need a place where I can see, is everything A-okay, or do I have a single problem with like 5 different products that I need to fix, and then I'll be all clear. So that's a good way of sort of checking on a daily basis. What's my account health? Is everything still okay? You'll see sort of in the chart that we're showing, most of this customer's graph is completely okay. Everything is great. So there are 3 different elements to the Diagnostics tab. First, there is the historical overview, and you can see this customer had a massive problem on their products for about half a month. And then they actually started about figuring out, maybe after watching a training like this, they discovered the key issue that they needed to resolve. And then about 90-95% of the products they were listing are actually live now. And then there are at three levels is where errors can occur. So first there's the account level. So there's something, again, let's say with the example of the Siberian tiger, you sell a Siberian tiger and that's not what we want. And if it's that egregious, we would disapprove your entire account, and it would prevent you from running any shopping ads at the same time. That's rare, but it happens. And that is what you find on the leftmost tab of the Diagnostics tab. The Feeds tab in the middle is one where if there's a data problem in the feed upload, so sometimes that's where the character encoding of a file doesn't quite work out, and it's usually quickly resolved. The one that we look at, or so that you'll probably look at most closely, is where you have an item level disapproval. So let's say of your 100,000 products, there are 300 that have some minor issue where there's maybe there's an image missing or there's a GTIN missing, and that is preventing the product from going live. That actually looks like that here, and there's 3 different levels. So if you look at the lower left-hand side, there are some that are clearly marked in a red triangle. Those are suspensions. So let's say you have an incorrect price. In the case of this customer, the 2 products that are actually disapproved for an incorrect price. And they affect 7% of the total products, but less than 1% of the clicks that customer received in the last 30 days. Then right below it is a yellow warning. That is for everything we're highlighting. This is something you may want to take a look at. It may become more important in the future, but right now it would not lead to a disapproval. It's just something to keep your eyes out on. And for example, whenever we announce our changes to the feed specification, that is all the changes that you then usually have like 3 to 6 months to make changes on, will upload as yellow icons and say this is going to come, and at some point, let's say in September, the yellow warning, which would actually switch to red disapproval if sort of the products haven't been worked on at that time. And then the blue ones are suggestions where you could be, for example, tagging your website with microdata for the product's condition. Is it new? Is it used? Etc. That is not a strict requirement. It's a recommendation. It would help keep your product data in even fresher shape. But just for you to understand, like these are the sort of the 3 different levels of magnitude, so to speak. Then what happens actually if a disapproval happens? Usually you have between 7 and 28 days. In most cases, you have 28 days to resolve a given problem. In the case that you sell a Siberian tiger, usually we see that as so egregious that we give you 7 days to remove that product or to fix sort of that issue with your shopping account. So that is something that we released in the 4th quarter of last year. So in the top right-hand box, top right-hand side of your screen in the Merchant Center, you'll now see a little message or envelope icon, and that brings up all the emails that we've sent you about policy disapprovals, about things that went wrong in your feed processing. It's just a very easy way for you to go through all these notifications. If you can't find them in your inbox anymore, you can always go into Merchant Center and find them there. And then lastly, let's say there is an item that you feel we have incorrectly disapproved. So let's say something got disapproved for pharma, but it's actually a gray hair coloring supplement, which is clearly not a pharmaceutical product, but just a dietary supplement. You can then go into the products page of the Merchant Center and flag the product and tell us, like, this is one that you need to have a second look at. I feel I'm being wrongly disapproved for this. And this then starts a process where somebody of our colleagues will manually take a look at that specific product in Merchant Center and that specific landing page on your website to figure out whether that was an accidental mistake on our part. And then immediately would put the product back up and it would be live again if indeed it was a mistake. All right, so essentially the disapprovals checklist is look at your account errors, look at your feed errors, and look at your item errors on a daily basis. And then if there's something that you believe was inadvertently flagged incorrectly, please flag that back to us so that more of your inventory can go live. And then a last call out is we will always send the email with these warnings to the technical contact that you have in your settings. So double check, it's on the left-hand side in your Merchant Center settings. Click on settings and then click on the contact. All right, again, we will post the links to all of this in the video description below. And now I will turn it over to my colleague Kim, who will walk you through the feed maintenance section.
All right, thank you, Casper. So we've learned about feed basics and how to avoid or troubleshoot disapprovals. So now we're going to review some key topics on how to maintain your feeds once they're set up. So that's including where you can go to efficiently maintain your feeds in the product, how you make sure your price and availability are up to date so that you avoid disapprovals, and how you can further build out your feed and find potentially missing inventory. So we had a good discussion about disapprovals, but why is feed maintenance important? So it helps us deliver the best customer experience. And we know that what we require is changing all the time. So as Casper mentioned previously, our product feed specification does get updated every year. That means to make sure that we show shoppers the best ads with the most relevant content. We may ask you to include more information about your products or different information about your products. These updates can be found yearly in the Help Center on the Inside AdWords blog. And following these updates is a good way to make sure that your feeds are in tip-top shape. We also talked about how price and availability is an important part of the online shopping experience for shoppers, and we see that disapproved a lot. So we want to make sure that you have the correct price and availability, as it's important to deliver that perfect online experience. And we'll talk about how you can actually automate these updates a little bit later. And with both of these, the idea is that more complete data allows us to show a more complete picture of your products to online shoppers, so that the more updated information we have from you, the better we'll be at matching the right products to the right customers when they're shopping on Google. All right, so one way to maintain your feeds is something that we released earlier last year. It's a Google Sheets add-on, and this is designed to provide a fast and friendly way to get started with shopping ads for small and medium-sized retailers of about 100,000 products or less in their feeds. So if you use Google Sheets to upload your inventory to the Google Merchant Center, the new Google Sheets add-on simplifies how you can actually create and upload and validate your feeds. So you can validate your products directly from Sheets. So there's a sidebar in the add-on that allows you to validate individual rows or your entire Google Sheet. And it'll show you any errors or warnings before you actually upload your data feed. You can upload your products directly from Sheets as well. So from that sidebar, you can upload your entire spreadsheet into Merchant Center without ever leaving Sheets. And the results of your upload are then displayed directly in that sidebar. So that gives you immediate feedback on your feed processing. So you're not having to wait for all of your products to process to get the results. And you can set up this tool in 5 minutes or less. It's much like how you would install any add-on through the add-ons menu. All right, so further discussing price and availability, this is an important topic again because we do see this having lots of products disapproved if we see that there's a mismatch in pricing and availability. So we have a few ways to solve for this. So you can actually upload your feed updates on autopilot with automatic item updates. So since the product page should be the source of truth for the most accurate price and product information, automatic item updates is a product that we release to best match your product information to the landing page if there is any change to price and availability. So if you implement schema.org microdata on your site and enable automatic item updates, Google will crawl your website product page to find those meta tags for price and availability. And if price and availability between the feed and the product page are different, we'll actually update the feed price and availability to match the product page. So one important note, we mentioned we want to ensure that your product feeds are fresh and updated at least every 30 days, and as Casper mentioned, ideally daily. Automatic item updates is a complementary tool, but it doesn't replace accurate data as it does take time to refresh, so that's just a best practice there. All right, turning it over to my colleague Julia to talk through feed rules.
Thank you. Since we're talking about maintaining the feed, one feature we will be launching in the Merchant Center in the next time will be feed rules. So it's not yet launched. You won't find it yet in the Merchant Center, but that's something we're currently beta testing and working very intensely on. And what feed rules will allow you is to do very simple data transformation directly in the Merchant Center. And to showcase and to explain what that actually means, I will walk you through 2 very concrete use cases that could be very interesting for you. And you'll see what you can do or will be able to do with feed rules. And while watching me walk you through the use cases, you'll see that this is very simple data transformation, but not like a tool to do like complex feed optimizations. So, going ahead. One thing we see, especially when somebody just starts with Google Shopping or uploads a new feed, is that we get a lot of errors that say missing required attribute. And that's not the case because a required attribute is not existent in the feed at all, but many times it's just because of a very simple reason the column is called in a not Google compliant way. So I drafted a scenario that should illustrate this like the best way. So for instance, you upload your feed and you get like the error message in the diagnostics tab Casper mentioned before, and you see like that we're missing an attribute, and that attribute is required. It's the brand one. But you know in your feed you have like the brand, but you just have the column called make. So as of now, you would have to go back to your IT department and maybe ask them to change it. And this might take like a couple of hours or a couple of days. But with feed rules, this is something you will be able to do in the future just by your own directly in the Merchant Center. So you can basically map one column to another column and thus make the inventory available on Google. So that's like a little sneak screenshot how that looks like, how you can set up such a rule, and you see like on the left side, it's a very simple implementation steps. You select like a new rule, you select brand, then you want to select that you want to use like a different column for that attribute, and once you've selected it, we will like map it automatically for you and the items will be live again. So another very interesting use case and something we see that's super popular in the feed is custom labels. We see a lot of our merchants really like to use custom labels, especially to later like segment and structure the shopping campaigns. And that's actually a great idea because that makes a lot of sense and really helps to go for more performance. So something that will be possible in the future is setting custom labels directly in the Merchant Center and without basically touching the feed. The only thing you have to keep in mind is you have to set the custom label based on information that is, let's say, somewhere in the feed. So an example we came up with, and that should be quite relevant for many of our clients, is basically slicing up the inventory by price buckets. And so, for instance, with the feed rules, you will be able to slice up your inventory into 3 buckets. We drafted an example that shows like low price, medium price, high price, but this is just for illustration only. And then you would have like custom labels in the feed, and those custom labels you can later use in the Merchant Center. And this very special use case could be, for instance, if you're using like target ROAS, one of our most advanced bidding strategies, this could like really help you to bring the campaign on the next level and to make sure that you group items with a similar value in one product group. So this is basically like a showcase of a product we haven't yet launched, but we were really excited and wanted to show you what little features we're going to launch in the Merchant Center quite soon. So stay tuned and watch our blog. We're going to announce when we're going to launch it. So back to my colleague.
Yep, back to me here. All right, another way to update or selectively update parts of your feed. An option is online product inventory feeds, which we heard about earlier, which is a new feed type that helps you make incremental updates to your pricing and availability without needing to resubmit your entire feed. So because it only focuses on a subset of information, it works much faster than processing the entire feed. So again, just note that you still need to submit a full product feed first. But after, you can use this feature to quickly update price and availability for limited time sales, for example, during the holidays. All right, so we just talked about two features that sound pretty similar in helping you update price and availability. So which price and availability feature would suit you best? So this is just a quick snapshot. Again, we'll be able to share this so you can reference this chart later, but just walking through really quickly. So for automatic item updates, this allows updating of price and availability data based on the schema.org microdata that Google finds on your website. It is a pulled data flow by Google, done approximately every 30 minutes, and it requires implementation of that schema.org microdata onto your site. And this is available for all merchants who implement that on their site. Online inventory feeds, by comparison, it allows updating of price and availability, plus sale price information for all or a subset of items separately from updating the regular product feed. It is push by the merchant, by you, so that's if you want more control over when those updates actually happen. It's instantaneous after processing. And again, it's much faster than submitting a full regular product feed. It requires a separate feed in a specific format, and that format can be found either in the UI or in the Help Center if you need any help setting that up. It requires an existing regular product feed in Merchant Center to append, and this is good for large advertisers who frequently see price and availability changes that want to retain the control of update frequency. All right, so other ways we want to ensure you're able to show the right products online to the right customers is unique product identifiers, which are things like the MPN or the manufacturer part number, the brand, or the GTIN, which we mentioned earlier was the Global Trade Identification Number. And providing these unique identifiers is vital to ensuring that Google does recognize your products and can offer the best experience for consumers. So just a quick tip on each one of these and common things that we see people often forget. So MPN, you want to make sure that that part number uniquely identifies the product and not just the manufacturer. For brand, you want to perform a check to ensure that the attribute does not include the product name or the store name, but it's actually the brand of the product. And then for the GTIN, you want to fill in the gaps by looking at the barcodes on the packaging and the products you sell, or use external tools to help complete those data gaps. And diving into this last one a little bit more, as we mentioned earlier, there is going to be a requirement coming up in mid-May, so we want to make sure that you guys have time to prepare for that. And we will be hosting a Hangout on Air next week that will be doing a deep dive on GTINs. But just a quick overview for now specifically. We already said that a key part of helping shoppers find that right product is clearly telling us which products you're selling. And on May 16th, we'll require merchants targeting specific countries, specifically US, Australia, Brazil, Czech Republic, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Netherlands, Spain, Switzerland, and the UK to submit correct GTINs and the corresponding brand for all products with GTINs assigned by the manufacturers. So for most products, the manufacturer will provide a GTIN to uniquely identify that product in the global marketplace. And if you don't already have correct complete GTINs in your data feed, it should be easy to find them. It's the barcode, as we mentioned, that's the 12 or 13-digit number printed below the barcode on the item's packaging. GTINs are also used in many warehouse management systems to identify and manage inventory, and these can often be exported in bulk. So you may want to work with your manufacturer and supplier to export these. But it is very important to note that you should not try and make up a placeholder for GTINs or use the same one for multiple different products because our system will detect this and we will disapprove your offers, which we don't want.
All right. So let's go back as part of the maintenance session to how you can use product categories in your feed to then have an effect downstream. So Julia just talked about custom labels, and we want to bring you a second example. So let's say you're ultimately in shopping campaigns, your feeds are what's driving your campaign structure down the road. A lot of our customers structure their campaigns by the product categories. So let's say you provide the Google product category or alternatively the product type, which is sort of the representation of how you represent your product hierarchy in your own business. If you bring that over into AdWords, then that is the control that you have at the product group level to structure your campaigns. The alternative way, as Julia showed, is to say, let's say you don't want to do it by sort of the product category that you're selling. You actually want to do it by price bucket, because ultimately, if you expect a product that is between $100 and $500 or €100 and €500 to deliver more gross revenue to your business, then it would most likely make sense to bid higher on the higher price bucket items than on the smaller price bucket items. But those are, for example, things to consider where sort of your campaign structure downstream is actually driven by how you set up your feed. So like, put some thought into how you want to structure your feed so that you can make the most use of it down the road. Obviously, you can always go and when feed rules comes out, like make any changes sort of on the fly, and then you would immediately see them in the AdWords front end and could pivot your entire campaign on a new custom label, so to speak. And then something that we want to call out as well, what are your options really for, especially if you're more advanced, for using product categories? So in the past, there only used to be the plain text product categories. So in this case, apparel and accessories, clothing, outerwear, coats and jackets, denim jackets. But then over time, some of these the plain text categories changed the wording. And so that's a concept that we introduced last year in the fall, where every category also has an ID. So let's say you're a more sophisticated advertiser and you don't use your product categories to structure your campaigns, but it's like still on the back end, it helps you group your data together. You might as well go with the category IDs, which are way easier to update, because even if let's say the category path, the name is changed down the road, the ID that is associated with that path would never change. So essentially using the IDs, it's future-proofing sort of your feeds for any potential changes to the product taxonomy. But that's really sort of a judgment call. Let's say you're offering like 500 products. It may be easier to use the more legible plain text categories if you have 1 million product and you're using the content API to push your products to Google and you're using the AdWords API to make all the changes in your AdWords interface. Then maybe you're better suited with your with those with those category IDs, depending on your business objectives.
All right, so there are a few other guidelines to remember when working with clients and their feeds. So it's important to always remember that once you finish creating a cadence for your feed, that you have continuous maintenance and making sure it always stays complete. So that's setting feeds to be updated on a daily basis to make sure that what you have in the feed actually matches what you'll display on your website. Staying up to date on features like automatic item updates to help scale data management, feed rules coming up. So just making sure that you stay tuned to the Inside AdWords blog, where we make a lot of our announcements, our Google Plus page as well, and coordinate promotional messaging for products and making sure that you give yourself enough time to use these tools and update things accordingly. And another way that you can not only maintain but improve your feed is through what we launched later last year called the Shopping Assortment Report, which is available in Merchant Center. So with the Shopping Assortment Report, you can quickly discover the top 100 products that you don't already offer in your Merchant Center product feed for each Google product category. So you can see benchmark selling prices for these products. And so this information can be helpful in identifying new brands and products to add to your assortment and reach just even more customers with these in-demand products. So the data is actually based on the popularity of these products on Google Shopping. So this does offer a near real-time view into online consumer demand for these products. So with this tool, you can identify key products that are missing from your feed. So identifying popular products you may sell, but you have forgotten to include in your feed, or maybe you have the incorrect GTIN associated with the product. You can also expand your product offering. So identify products that you currently do not sell, but maybe you want to source them from a supplier and add them to your product feed. And you can think of this as a free business intelligence tool on Google Shopping products that people across your teams can use. For example, those who buy new products, for those who price the products, and for those who run the site to make sure that popular items are properly displayed on your website. All right, so now that we've gone through a variety of maintenance features, we just want to make sure that you remember these key steps. I know we are wanting to do Q&A as well.
Yes, so we'll quickly jump ahead to the Q&A session. So thank you for all the questions that you entered into the box. So we're looking through the questions and saw a few we quickly want to address. So is there a difference in format between the product feeds and the online product inventory update feeds? Yes, the online product inventory update feeds are much, much simpler in structure. They have 5 columns only. They have the product ID, they have the price, they have availability, they have the sale price in case you want to do a sale, and sale price effectiveness. So let's say you run a special promotion on like 20 products, then only for those 20 products you could say 3 days from now that's going to be the sale price, and you can let us know ahead of time. Whereas the big product feed has like the roughly 15 to 20 different columns that you always need to provide. Then there was a question about how many product categories are permissible per product. So it's a one-to-one relationship. Every single sort of row in your sheet can only have a single Google product category. We really like the idea of the examples of a return and refund policy. We'll talk with our product team to make that happen. We're currently reworking the Help Center content, and so this is actually a quite timely question. And then lastly, we saw a question around what happens if you sell custom t-shirts, and we want to confirm that like the answer that somebody else on the in the help box that was given is actually correct. So it's like, let's say you are selling 3 different versions of the same t-shirt, one in red, one in yellow, one in blue. You would create an item group ID that would represent that it's actually the same t-shirt, and then you would make an item ID, ID 1, 2, and 3, one for the yellow, one for the blue, one for the red one. You would, in the case that you sell a single quantity of that t-shirt, you would give us the single price, $5. In the case you sell only 10 t-shirts at a given time, the price that you would need to submit in the price field is $50, so 5 times 10. And then in the unit pricing measure field, you would then submit, for example, the $5, and then you would set the unit quantity base measure field to like count of 1. Then we know essentially the price for the total checkout. So when the customer goes to the checkout is $50 because that's essentially your minimum order that they have to do. And then the price of an average t-shirt of like a single t-shirt would be $5. So that adds to the easier comparability of products. as sort of multiple t-shirt merchants are displayed on Google Shopping. And with that, I think we're at time. Thank you very, very much from all of us for tuning in so late in Europe and so early here on the West Coast. We're hoping to see you back the coming Thursday, sort of 8:30 Pacific time. It should be 4:30 European Central Time in the afternoon for the GTIN Hangout, and then we'll send out a second sort of invitation and post it externally for a feed optimization hangout where we'll go in detail. Now that we've sort of covered the basics, you can go back, review the training, look at certain slides. We'll post all the links to the Help Center, and then the training in May is going to be about like what happens if I actually put the brand at the front of the title. Does that have an effect on click-through rates and conversions? What else can I do to tweak my feed? And content like that. So stay tuned, and thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.